light within my heart, light within my thoughts, light within my words. May one and all and everything, blessed and loved, ever be. Welcome. I am Sister Who. For myself, I do believe in a spiritual being that is the embodiment of highest wisdom and greatest love, that I refer to as God, Godde. I use the different spelling in order to distinguish it from the patriarchal history of religion on earth at the moment. There were times and places where the religions or societal systems were not patriarchal, but may have been matriarchal or something else. But the present time, there's a patriarchal flavor to everything that is not always helpful. What I understand to be God, however, transcends human definitions. And I can't imagine that something worthy of the name God, or worthy to be named God, would be no greater than the limited human conceptions of male or female, or even our limited notions of personhood. The hunger that some people sometimes feel, sometimes called a spiritual hunger, that I want to go find God, and that just brought to mind this whimsical little video that I saw on YouTube some time back, and I'm not even sure who made it or when it was first made, or even in what country it was made. But it was called Having Twinkies in the Park with God, and it's essentially this video of a little boy who says he's going off to find God, and he takes his little backpack and puts 2 Twinkies in it and a couple little bottles of orange juice, and goes to the park, sits on a bench to have a Twinkie and a bottle of juice, and just as he's about to take a bite, decides that instead of eating this one himself, he'll give it to the homeless woman sitting a few feet away on the same bench. And so they basically start enjoying having a Twinkie and a bottle of juice together, and at the end he runs over and spontaneously gives her a hug, and then heads on home, and she's happy as can be because she's just been validated and loved and respected by another human being. And walks down to another bench somewhere else in the park and meets another homeless woman who asks, "Why are you so happy?" And she says, "Because I just had Twinkies in the park with God." And of course the other woman is totally confused by the description, and then she comments to the second homeless woman, "He's much younger than I thought he would be." And the little boy goes home to his mother, who asks, "Did you find God?" And the little boy says, "God is a woman, and she has the most beautiful smile I've ever seen." And I guess the theme is kind of being able to see God in each other. And so in finding God, I think what we're really talking about is finding interconnection, and finding a cure, if you will, for feeling so isolated and alone from each other and from that which is greater than ourselves. I don't know that I feel connected to God when I engage in times of deep prayer. I would say yes, but I don't know of any way to describe that so that you could manufacture my experience in your life. Or that anyone could have somebody else's mystical experience. In not having any sense of God or any sense of spirituality, I think it's that lack of connection that people are feeling, that they don't want to be there. We want to feel connected, we want to feel loved and validated, and like life is not meaningless, as if life is not meaningless, but that there is a reason and a purpose that we're here, and for going through the struggles and challenges that we do, and doing our best making an effort to make something good come out of each day. And that is so much easier to do when you have a sense of family and home and community. And frequently what is central to a sense of community is some sense of worship, some sense of spirituality that deals with the invisible parts of life, the things you can't see, the things you can't define, the mysteries you haven't learned yet. And I don't mean any of this conversation to be the least bit offensive to my atheist friends. In some cases, I know that my friends have chosen the path of atheism because they have found it to be a different approach to spirituality that does not require a personified deity, that is effective in giving them a positive way of relating to that which is beyond themselves and that which is unnameable, undescribable, unlearned, undiscovered, unknown yet, divine mystery. Divine mystery does not mean that, does not refer to the definition you may have heard in any one of a million different churches across the country, or any synagogue or temple or wherever. Divine mystery is not defined by somebody else's definition, thrown at you, imposed upon you, offered to you. Divine mystery is simply, it is what it is, and the fact that we don't know what it is, and that we're growing and learning, and in spite of that, that we have some minimum suggestion of communication. I mean, in some ways, I guess it's like the relationship I have with my service dog. We don't exactly have a common language, but we do seem to understand each other somewhat. I understand God a whole lot less, and yet there is still this sense of love that inspires me to engage in prayer, to engage in rituals, to engage in seeking the best in every moment of life and trying to nurture personal and spiritual growth in those around me wherever I go. And to always remember that there is more to life than the economic systems, than the material resources, than the humdrum dynamics that are confined to this world and will not extend outside of it. So that when my time comes and my life is over, I believe my spirit will go somewhere. As the law of physics says, energy is neither created nor destroyed. It simply changes form and place. I don't know where my spirit will go, and I don't know what it will perceive when I get there, or if there is really as close as the ends of my fingertips, and just another dimension of being that is outside or somehow beyond the perception of my five senses. But I know I have to be at peace with everything that I can't see in order to deal effectively with everything that I can see. And this feeling of being interconnected with some sense of truth and honesty and love and beauty, and not be some sort of accident or afterthought. For a great many years, and in some places still, there are people of faith who insist that gay and lesbian people are kind of the mistakes of God, if you will. God never meant for that to happen. Well, so God lost control for a moment, or what? In finding God, I think a lot of it is about making oneself available to something greater than oneself, making oneself available to what cannot be explained or fully understood, what is not certain, and in spite of all of that, still has this sense of unconditional love and truth and higher truth about it. That by immersing ourselves in love and even just the gradual, manageable pursuit of truth, that we don't have to have all the answers by the end of next week, but that as we live our lives and we notice what we experience and we notice what's around us and we notice how things grow and change and we notice the patterns in the seasons and the years, and we notice how we use our own language and how others use language, and how behind all of that language are realities. The reason the words exist is because somebody encountered something that had to be named. At one point, some, or perhaps a lot of people, encountered something that they felt a need to call God, something for which no other word would do. And perhaps for my atheist friends, that refers to a indescribable feeling of awe in the universe that may not need a name, but it's something that allows them to be at peace with what is beyond themselves. That there may or may not be something out there, that somehow good seems to be rewarded and evil seems to be punished, and in some cases not, and that whatever happens, they are able to deal with the non-physical parts of life in a way that makes sense and in a way that empowers them. And if they need to have some sort of different understanding, I'm sure that which is truly God is more than capable of giving them any miraculous experience that it wants to inform them of some higher reality. I'm not in charge of such things, so I don't decide whether God is going to show up as a burning bush or an angel standing in the road with a sword, or one of hundreds of thousands of different possible forms that the divine could take. That's for the divine to decide. My service to others' personal spiritual growth is to say, I'll walk with you. I'll help you sort through the questions. I'll give you whatever pointers I can about making yourself available and learning how to listen, so that when God is ready, that which is truly God can speak to you. And if God is not ready to speak to you in any particular way at the moment, how to look for peace and look for balance while waiting and trusting that things will unfold in the time that is right for them to unfold. And it may be, as in that amusing little video, that finding God is just as much about finding God in each other. The word namaste, which is used in a lot of New Agey kind of circles, and is a wonderful word. It actually comes from an ancient language of India called Sanskrit, if I understand correctly, and essentially says the divine in me bows or respects or acknowledges the divine within you. And in that sense, kind of like in the video, the meeting God to some extent is meeting each other, but where people want to say that in the extreme way, I kind of say, no, maybe it's down here in the little way. And so the metaphor I usually come up with, instead of saying I am God and you are God and everybody is God, is to say that God is the ocean and I am a glass of water. Or more succinctly, I'm a glass of water contemplating the ocean. That for me is a metaphor of what spirituality is all about. That I recognize something in me that is some tiny, tiny, tiny piece of what the divine is, but it is so incomprehensible to me that I sit on the beach and contemplate it throughout my life, and metaphorically speaking, and that I not only contemplate the ocean, but that I then begin to contemplate, if that's the ocean and I am a glass of water, what does that say about how I should relate to the other glasses of water who are also sitting all up and down the beach contemplating the ocean? Or the glasses of water that are not even on the beach, they're off somewhere else, not even paying attention to the ocean. not paying any attention to how they are the little sparks of a much greater flame, to use a different metaphor. That I may be a candle and God is a bonfire. And how do I understand myself, and how do I understand God, and how do I choose what the activity of life should be because of how I understand the relationship between those two, and because of how I understand the relationship between myself and all the other sparks around the bonfire. And they have all different descriptions, and I don't know there's any basis for saying who's right and who's wrong, because it's all focused on a bonfire that none of us comprehend. I suppose the more literal example of that, brought way down into human thinking, is the 6 blind men and the elephant, which I've mentioned a few times, but I don't know whether everybody has read that poem or not, but of course I think everybody should. Not because I think it's the best poem in all of human history, but because it hits on a point with amazingly concise focus that I'm not sure whether any other work really does as effective of a job of describing it. And then it's all the more amazing to me that the poem was written 150 years ago by John Godfrey Sachs. And I don't remember every word for word of the whole thing, but basically it's that there were six men of Indostan to learning much inclined, who went out to see the elephant, though all of them were blind. And they walk up to the elephant and each grab a different part and say, the one who grabs the tusk says the elephant is like a spear. The one who grabs the trunk says the elephant is like a snake. The one who grabs the ears says the elephant is like a sail. The one who grabs the legs says the elephant is like a tree. The one who touches the side of the elephant says the elephant is like a wall. And the one who touches the tail says the elephant is like a rope. And then they argue about who's right. And John Godfrey Sachs parallels that to ministers arguing about the nature of God. And that's where I come back to saying I'm a glass of water contemplating the ocean. And I can tell others how to join me on the beach and contemplate the ocean, or if they want to contemplate the ocean from the top of the bluff, or wherever they want to do it from. And in all of this, to begin to understand how we have at least a little bit in common with each other, but we're all answering it in different ways, kind of like the 6 blind men and the elephant, all answering the same question in different ways. And all of their assertions and arguments do absolutely nothing to change the elephant. The elephant remains the elephant exactly as the elephant is, no matter what is said. And in a similar way, as I commented in some correspondence with a friend who described himself as an atheist, I just said, God doesn't blink into existence because I say so, nor does God blink out of existence because you say so. God either is or is not, and it's up to you and I to discover whatever we can during our lives, to learn and grow in whatever ways we can. I feel inspired to draw one conclusion, you feel inspired to draw a different conclusion, and I think there should be mutual respect between us. I don't know if it's so much about finding God as it is about being the sort of person that God would want to find. And yet even at that, it's not about earning so much as simply being. It's, when I'm a glass of water on the ocean, when I'm a glass of water on the beach contemplating the ocean, it's not that the ocean is looking for me or I'm looking for the ocean, it's that we have something in common, and what we're really looking for is a way to understand ourselves and our interconnectedness. And in some far-flung, very, very distant future, perhaps, being able to understand myself better because of my relationship to be able to understand myself as a glass of water better because of understanding a little bit more of what the ocean entails. And to therefore conduct myself with humility, and humility toward the ocean and humility toward the other glasses of water, and not, I mean, that's why I guess I keep coming back to seeing humanity as egalitarian rather than hierarchical. But of course there are several belief systems that would want to place humanity in hierarchical relationships, caste systems and degrees of superiority, and the rich lording it over the poor, and so on. And yet, at the bottom level, using the metaphor of the glass of water in the ocean, we're just all water. There's no hierarchy, and whether we're higher or lower than each other basically depends on where the glass tips over. But as I try to emotionally and spiritually and intellectually come to terms with the notion of seeking God or seeking spirituality, the word that keeps coming back to mind is connection, the interconnection and the interdependence, the things that allow us to transcend the sometimes imposed shape of the glass in which we find ourselves to be at the moment. We may evaporate out into humidity and steam or moisture and travel down the beach, and when night falls, condense as dew on a particular plant. We may find ourselves traveling through a whole long line of different forms of life, quenching the thirst of some, supporting the bloodstream of others, moving through a range of different forms as we move through our lives, in a similar sort of way that I was a toddler, I was an elementary school student, I was a high school student, I was a college student, I was a graduate level student, and in between all of that, I was a newspaper delivery boy, I was an administrative assistant, I was a ski rental shop manager, I was a writer, I was an author, I was a television producer, or I have been, I should say. I've been all of those things, and they're all different forms, and yet there's a common essence within them all. And that common essence has something in common, some undefined, mysterious connection with the transcendent, with that which is beyond me. But if I don't slow down and take the time and be quiet for a moment and just listen, I'm going to miss it all. And in that sense, I keep coming back to this notion that it's not so much looking for God as looking for connection, because God is right here, and in a sense heaven and hell and everything are right here, and yet to interpret any of these statements too literally creates more problems than empowerment. Are you God? Am I God? We don't have definitions that serve the understanding appropriately. Where is heaven? Where is hell? Where is probably not a word that serves the definitions appropriately. If one is feeling an emptiness, and if one is longing for a sense of spirituality and interconnection, there are many different ways of finding that. And I would suggest that all of them, somewhere in the mix, have a strong element of love. So that when we find love in each other, when we find love within ourselves, when we find love within the universe around us, to me that's a suggestion that God is not far off. If we can experience love, giving love to others, receiving love in ourselves, giving love to the natural world, loving animals and plants and trees and forests and everything. The more we immerse ourselves in love, the more we become inseparable from God. In the same way that if I take my glass of water and ultimately pour it into the ocean, I become inseparable from the ocean. There are very few things in the Christian Bible that make the point-blank statement, God is. But one of those is, God is love. And it goes to backwards and forwards, restating that idea, trying to impress upon people that where there's love, there's God. If you're in love, you're in God. If love is gone and you don't have any love for yourself or anyone else, getting back to a place of being able to give and receive love is a really good place to start. And as Sister Who, anything I can do to help or support your personal and spiritual growth in that direction, it is an honor and a privilege to do. Please do not hesitate to contact me. Let me know if there is anything I can offer. So, thank you very much for watching. And now may you be blessed with love and peace in the pursuit of your own dreams and in all your dealings with the diversity of humanity around you. Amen.